Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Worried your New Year's resolutions will fizzle out? Let me show you a way to set them and keep them. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with your host, five-time author and fiduciary, the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
Welcome to the WorryFree Retirement. I'm Tony Walker, and by the time you watch this pre-recorded show with yours truly, we'll be fast approaching another new year, 2018. Can you believe it? And with the end of each year begins this sometimes stressful task of setting up New Year's resolutions. I say stressful because we actually are getting ready to set ourselves up for failure when you consider that it is estimated that only 8% of people, 8%, making New Year's resolutions will even keep them. Now, one of the most common and popular resolutions, take a guess what you think it is. That's right, getting more exercise. And then right behind that real close is losing weight. Actually, saving more for retirement is a little farther down the scale according to most Google polls, but nevertheless, I guess we tend to mark time by setting resolutions. Something that's funny, I never remember my granddad doing. Now, I do remember my granddad always talking about how, as you get older, time flies. He used to always say that, how time flies as I get older. And I'm like, maybe that's why he never set any resolutions. Anyway, as a teenager hanging around with granddad, I can remember thinking, come on, granddad, what in the world do you have to do? Why would time be flying by? All you do is sit around, drink Folgers coffee, and watch Johnny Carson. How could time be flying by? Well, here I am, 57 years of age, and I'm thinking, dadgummit, time really does fly by as you get older. And with that, I'll have to say, I'm very thankful that years ago it was prompted to me by several people, call it God's Spirit, I don't know, but just there was something that dawned on me years ago that I needed to start learning how to set up resolutions, and then behind those resolutions, how to set up effective goals for maintaining my stance on those resolutions and keeping me on the straight and narrow. And it's not easy to do that. But I realized that goals and resolutions are two different things, and I think that's where many people make the mistake, and that's why there's so much failure in keeping these resolutions. And that's the point of today's show. I think this is going to be a very, very helpful show. In fact, quite frankly, if you're sitting there and don't have a you-know-what to tinkle in, you're going to love this show. If you have a lot of money, you're going to love this show. If you have kids maybe that are struggling, if you're trying to help others, it doesn't matter. I'm going to share with you what I've learned from working with some of the top minds in the industry on the idea of how do you set up goals, and more importantly, how do you make those goals successful in satisfying your resolutions. I'll share with you what I've learned from Brian Tracy in just a second when I used to travel out there every quarter and study under a program called Focal Point. And I will start beginning with resolutions and again, thinking about where we got started with these to begin with. So a little history real quick before we get the whiteboard out. Some 4,000 years ago, the Babylonians were the first to start marking this idea of setting New Year's resolutions and celebrated it each year. And I think it was all geared around the crops when they planted them, and I guess that was part of the ritual. So as my dad says, actually, who cares? But at least we know man has been preoccupied for quite some time with resolutions. In other words, these are nothing new to sit down each year or at some marked period of time and set up goals or resolutions for yourself. Now again, one of the things that I've done in my practice, and one of the reasons I think, again, all my goals have not worked out. Don't get me wrong, I've had many failures in my life, but I love to continue setting goals because some of them have worked out. Now what I decided to do is take a three-pronged approach to my life, and it consists of three things, and actually it's the foundation of what started the worry-free retirement process, which is what I use in my practice. And that three-pronged approach is man, money, and God. So everything I try to do, I try to build around those three premises. In fact, I wrote 3 books around that. The man was the 3 Personalities of Money book. The God was the Worry-Free Retirement book and the foundation there. And finally, money is don't follow the herd. So I even wrote books that kind of tailored into that three-prong approach to man, money, and God. So today my objective is to help you set up realistic resolutions and goals that will not only get to where you want to go, but most importantly, keep you there. So let's first start with the notion of resolutions, again, and the idea of being preoccupied around them coming up this January in just a few days, and what's going to happen in the rest of the year that's going to try to sidetrack you from maintaining and keeping your hand to the plow. When I come back, I'm going to get the whiteboard out. I'm going to show you something I learned from Mr. Tracy that has really helped me stay focused. You might want to get a pen and pad of paper out and kind of make some notes on this, or definitely want to DVR this upcoming episode, because this is something that's going to for sure possibly help you, or something you may want to transfer in terms of this knowledge to someone else you care about. I'm Tony Walker. I'll be right back. You've spent years saving and building a nest egg for retirement, and now that you're retired or thinking about retiring, how are you going to use, enjoy, and protect all of that money? I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 30 years I've helped thousands of hardworking savers understand the importance of setting up a game plan that they can count on in retirement. Contact me for a personal, no-obligation appointment. Stop procrastinating. Take action now by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Did you realize that Uncle Sam has a plan for your retirement savings that could penalize as much as 50% of it? It's called the Required Minimum Distribution, or RMD. And regardless of whether you're young or old, retired or still working, you need a game plan to maximize your RMD. Visit TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on the free RMD webinar button to learn the 10 strategies to maximizing your RMD. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and we'll see you soon.
It's kind of like a story that I heard about a road up in Vermont that was unpaved, and there was a sign on the side of the road that said, "Choose your ruts carefully, you'll be in them for the next 20 miles." What you decide today is going to influence what happens tomorrow.
You may live 20, 30, 40 years. What are you going to do with it? And that's the hard part for people in their 20s to think about. That's hard for people in their 40s to think about.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. You were watching a segment from the documentary directed years ago called Say Goodbye to Granddad's Retirement. Boy, that turned out to be a flop. I was so excited about that. I had a goal of trying to get that into school systems, try to help young people understand retirement. Actually, it's a great video, but you know what? My goal of getting it into the school systems never happened. That's okay, though. It has there featured one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, the Reverend James Britt in Bowling Green, who agreed to kind of help me with that portion of the video, and I kind of want to just get his take on things, and that was all impromptu. I mean, that was a powerful scene, and the idea is that basically here's a response to my questions about what's appropriate in terms of setting up goals, things you decide in life. Basically, he's saying you got to be careful, because if you get stuck in a rut, you never know how long you'll be in them or how you can get out of them, and that is so true. So how do we break free from the rut? That is, the rut of feeling like we're not going anywhere or we're stuck in some place. Well, first of all, you got to start setting productive and predictable goals. These have to be done in such a way that you basically are telling yourself, here's where I want to go, and here's how I'm going to get there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my cheat notes here from some old notes I drug out. This was almost 15 years ago. What I would do, back then I was in a program with Brian Tracy, well-known author, great man, and he does a good job of helping people formulate goals. In fact, a great book you might want to get is just called Goals by Brian Tracy. But anyway, I would fly out there every quarter for a year. It was called Focal Point, spend the entire day out there, and all we would do is try to go through worksheets and try to help understand how to set proper goals. So this is one of the exercises, actually two things I'm going to take you through. So again, if you have a pad of paper and pencil handy, or if you want to DVR this, this is some really, really good stuff. So okay, let's turn over here and go to this. First of all, this is kind of an interesting start. What % of success starts with what you do, what you need, no, what you want, okay? So you're sitting there and you're thinking, I want to be successful, and I'm going to try to help you think through what it is you want and how to realistically set up goals, which is what you want. But what percent of that, of the success, starts with knowing exactly what you want? Aaron, America's favorite financial sidekick, you want to take a guess? What percent? 50, maybe 60? 80, Aaron says. Brian Tracy estimates that 95% of success starts with knowing what you want. Why are you even doing this? Most people don't even really know what they want, okay? It's a toughie. So what we're going to do is we're going to help you think through this and give you a little exercise to try to help you. I often say my job is to help savers get what they want. What do they want? They want a worry-free retirement. They want to make things simple. They don't like complex. They like guarantees. They want to enjoy their money. They want an advisor in whom they can trust. These are all things they want. They just don't know how to go about getting it. That's why we go through our process. But anyway, the first thing you need to do, and we do this actually in the Worry-Free Retirement, you have to clarify your vision. What is it exactly you want? Let's go back to my flop with the documentary, Say Goodbye to Granddad's Retirement. What I wanted was to get that into school system, and we'll see in a minute, it probably wasn't a realistic objective. It turned out to be a great video, and it's helped me formulate other ideas, but the original objective of getting that into school systems for kids, it didn't work out. We won't go into details why I think it didn't, but it just didn't. That's a fact. Secondly, after you clarify what it is you want and you cast your vision, you must get things simplified. My gosh, this is the worst thing in the world that the financial world throws on us. They intentionally complicate things. And you say, yeah, they do, Tony. I never know what's going on. Why do they do that? So they can stay in control of your money. Folks, if they make this too simple, you may not need them. We make this simple so we can help you, but so that we can help you continue to enjoy your money without feeling like you got to call us every 30 days just to have a review. I mean, if we've got to review your situation on a regular basis, something's wrong, or we've made this too complicated. So we need to simplify what it is you're trying to accomplish and what it is you want. The next thing you need to do is maximize your current resources or resources you're going to use. Many times what you will do is you've got resources at your disposal that you could maximize or take advantage of. What do? You don't see them there and you go out and you spend money or waste money, or you drag in people that really can't help you, and sometimes it's right under your nose. You could maximize your current resources to help you get to where you want to go, but you don't have the resources to do that. You don't have the people, the expertise, whatever. That's what we do a lot of times. A lot of times people come into us, had a couple in last night. They said, Tony, we've got all this stuff, we want to retire, but we don't know what to do with this money and how to make it work for us. What they're saying is we don't know how to maximize our resources. We don't have that expertise, and that's where we can help. So, by the way, if you're sitting there thinking about that going, I want to retire, but I'm not sure if I can retire. And every time I go to talk to somebody, all they're doing is trying to sell me something. How do I know if I'm maximizing my resources? We're very good at that, so take advantage of that service. And then finally, we need to multiply. Well, this is a good one, multiply. What that means is if we could take one activity and make it work multiple periods of time, or one resource and make it work over and over for us. Last week I showed you the example of the LLC I set up and how we purchased the building and how the rents from Tony Walker Financial are continually working in the Walker household, and it's all legal. Now granted, we still have to pay taxes, I had to pay attorneys and all that, but as you can imagine, I'm maximizing that. In fact, let's take that. If you saw last week's episode, I wanted to clarify my vision. I wanted to pass more money on to my kids on a tax-efficient basis. I had to simplify that as best I could, which with the help of an attorney and accountant we did. I maximized my current resources by having a corporation, an LLC. I had money I could borrow from my life insurance policy, which worked out well. And then multiply, we're using the same dollar more than once. Just great, great economics. So that's what you need to do. You need to look at all four of these, clarify your vision of what you want, get things as simple as you can, maximize your current resources before you go wasting your time on other things, and then try to multiply those resources and try to get as much use out of them and use them over and over if possible. Okay, so now we're going to slide over here. So you say, okay, Tony, I think I got this. I'm going to start using this model before I jump into any endeavors or before I decide to go out here and get on an exercise kick. So this might be really your model of what you're trying to do, but you say, Tony, I need an action plan to make this work. I really don't know what to do with this. I've got in my mind what I want. I think I've got things simplified. I definitely want to maximize my resources. I'm going to multiply those resources. But how do I do this? All right. There's basically 6 things that Mr. Tracy suggests in order to set up a successful action plan. Now this one's going to blow you away. What most people do is they start forecasting way out into the future. I want something to happen 20, 30 years from now. Now folks, you really are setting yourself up for failure. There's nothing wrong with dreaming about 20 or 30 years from now. There's too many things that can happen between 20 and 30 years from now. What he suggests doing is starting out with a 30 to 90 day goal, all right? So this is a much shorter time frame, and there's a lot of things you can do with a 30 to 90 day goal. Number one, if you get too far into this thing and it's a wrong move, you can get out of it quickly, right? You don't have false expectations. Also, you can monitor and measure things more quickly. So that leads to our next thing. First of all, successful action plans should start off on a short-term basis. Secondly, you must be able to measure them. You know, we are constantly doing marketing here. We're constantly talking in our staff meetings about measuring, they call it analytics, but is our marketing really working? Before we go off on this tangent and try to market something that is a big picture thing that could take years to come across, we need to start with a short-term 30 to 90 day goal. We recently did that. By the way, we still got these available. Went over great. The Mailbox Money for Life booklet, you can still order that at TonyWalkerFinancial.com. This fits into that. We said, let's take a 90-day snapshot and let's just try to see if people are interested in the Mailbox Money booklet, which, you know, we got hundreds and hundreds of orders. And again, it was very easy to measure. We knew that the response was very good, and that was a productive campaign. Number 3, with that, let's stay with that theme, Aaron. You've got to measure the financial impact, both coming and going. We had to pay to get the booklets produced. We had to advertise these Mailbox Money for Life booklets. I mean, it goes on and on again. So you have to say, okay, over the last 90 days, we've spent X. Was this a successful campaign? Did we help anybody with this campaign? Or is there just a bunch of people running around with a Mailbox Money booklet? You know, we get these booklets in people's hands. Granted, we want to educate them, but if they don't take action, right, we're trying to get an action plan going and go through this process, we really haven't helped anybody. So it's very important that we have to measure, but also financially it makes sense. You would have to do the same thing. The process needs to remain under your control. The reason I'm not a huge fan of putting 100% of your money in a 401k, it's I don't have any problem in theory with saving money for the future. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you, let's say you're 40 years old, once you start dumping all of your money in a 401k, the biggest factor going against you folks is you lose control. Wall Street takes over the money and they get fees. You take all the risk and they don't. We don't know what the tax rules are going to be down the road. You can't even get access to your money unless you take penalties or you borrow it, and that's a terrible way to get it out. So that's a good example. So that's why I'm not a big proponent of maxing out your 401k. It sometimes comes back to haunt you. So again, we want things as best we can to remain under our control. Oh boy, this is a good one. Within our resources. Okay, but by the grace of God, there have been some things I've invested in, especially business-wise. They just didn't work out. I'm thinking, Tony, what were you thinking? So if you're going to endeavor into something, especially if it's a financial commitment, make sure you have the resources. When I talked about the building we've recently purchased in Louisville and the one in Bowling Green, especially with the one in Louisville, I made sure that I had enough money built up in my cash value life insurance to borrow it for myself so I could buy that thing. I made sure I had the resources. I didn't want to get overly leveraged on that building, which I didn't. Because why? Things can happen. So this is why you need to avoid what we call bad debt, or avoid getting into something where you know it's going to come back to haunt you. So be careful. Make sure you're operating within your own resources. How does that factor into retirement? It factors in retirement a lot, because if you don't understand retirement planning, if you don't understand the 3 halves of life, which we do, if you don't understand the taxes on your money, Social Security, all those things we take into consideration before you pull the ripcord and decide to retire. And then finally, this may sound trite, but this is actually the most important. Is this something, okay, something you really want to do? You say, well, of course it is, Tony. Oh, really? Is it? You know, people say, well, yeah, I want to lose 20 pounds. And then they work out for a week and they say, heck with this. what it is, you probably started down here. You know, Covey talks about that. Begin with the end in mind. Whatever you're getting ready to do, okay, realize it's going to be a commitment. Although we're just looking at a 30 to 90 day snapshot, we're hoping this is a long-term commitment. Ask yourself this question before you get into anything. Is this something I really want to do? Is this somewhere I really want to go? And I would encourage you, if you're talking to financial advisors, again, there's a lot of great financial advisors out there, before you just go investing money with them. This comes up a lot in annuities. People come into me and they'll go, I got this annuity, Tony, I don't understand. I'll say, why did you invest in that? Well, it just sounded good. They made a good pitch. I got guaranteed income. And I'm like, yeah, but did you really want to invest in this? Did you really understand this annuity? And all of them will say, no, I really didn't. I don't even know why I got the thing. So regardless of what products you invest in, regardless of what pitch you're hearing lately on the various services, if you don't feel good about it, I would go through these things. These 6 things are there to protect you. But ultimately, if you really don't want to do something, folks, don't let anybody pressure you to do anything you don't want to do. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. I think this would be very helpful if you try to follow this model. I do intuitively all the time, and I've gotten better at it over the years. And again, there's some things in the past I wished I'd used this because, again, everything I've done has now turned to gold, folks. But here's the key. You have to keep moving forward. Remember what the great writer Spurgeon once said, perfection is the standard, direction is the key. I hope this has been helpful. You know, the Bible has a lot to say about a lot of things, and does it have much to say about resolutions? Well, I'll tell you what, when I come back, the answer to that question is really going to shock you. You stay tuned. I'm going to get me a cup of coffee. You're watching the WorryFree Retirement. I will be right back. Did you realize that Uncle Sam has a plan for your retirement savings that could penalize as much as 50% of it? It's called the Required Minimum Distribution, or RMD. And regardless of whether you're young or old, retired or still working, you need a game plan to maximize your RMD. Visit TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on the free RMD webinar button to learn the 10 strategies to maximizing your RMD. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and we'll see you soon.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, 5-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Ever wonder how advisors make money? Hi, I'm registered investment advisor Tony Walker, and for years, advisors representing Wall Street have convinced you that fees are better than paying commissions. Well, no wonder. Look at this example of an advisor charging 1.5% per year on your money. Wow, they've made a lot of money whether you did or not. If you feel like everybody's making more money on your money than you are, schedule an appointment with me today. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. All right, good cup of coffee. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And does the Bible have anything to say about setting New Year's resolutions? It sure does. It says, don't do it. Well, not exactly, but it does warn repeatedly about the notion of making vows. So when you think about it, a resolution is kind of like a vow, V-O-W. In other words, you're setting your mind on something that you say you're going to do, you tell people you're going to do it or you're not going to do it, when in fact, you either, number one, have no intention of keeping the vow, or number two, in your own strength, there's no way you can keep the vow, and thus what happens? You fail, and then usually what follows is everybody is disappointed, you're disappointed, and then you think God doesn't love you, all kinds of weird kind of thoughts. And that's why the Bible warns against such activities as we see in these following verses. Now I'm going to paraphrase some of these, but let's just blow through several verses that warn against this concept of vows. Now let me preface this. In our humanness, I think resolutions and goals are very, very good. This is getting to the heart of the matter and what we're telling God we're going to do. This is where it gets a little spooky, because what happens is, I believe what the Bible's warning us of, is we begin in our own strength to say we're going to do this and do that, and the temptation is to not rely on the strength of God, and I think vows can help our faith to waver if we're not careful. But anyway, Ecclesiastes 5:2 says, don't make rash promises, and don't be hasty in bringing matters before God. After all, God is in heaven and you are on earth. I love this. So let your words be few. What about Deuteronomy 23:21-23? It says, if you make a vow to the Lord your God, don't avoid keeping it. The Lord your God expects you to keep it. You would be guilty of a sin if you didn't. Now, that's not good news. It goes on, we won't continue reading it. You can read the rest of those verses. Again, it's just warning you against setting up vows. So what's the point, you ask? The point is to think clearly about what you are getting ready to commit yourself to when you make a resolution. When in fact, particularly as we saw from the last segment, if you have no structure to that resolution, if you have no game plan for how you're going to follow through on that resolution, my thoughts, it's kind of like what the Bible said, don't even set the resolution. Don't commit to something when you're not equipped to follow through on it. And again, I'm not fussing at you. I've done this time and time again in my life, and that's why we have these tools that we try to help people employ even when we're doing retirement planning. Gentleman the other day I was meeting with, he said, Tony, you're asking me questions and going through scenarios that nobody else I've talked to even discusses with me. Why do advisors not do this? And I told him, number one, I don't think they understand the importance of what we're talking about. Number two, they make it too much about the money and products. And number three, they don't know how to go through this. Folks, I've spent a lot of time and money training under people to help me understand how to set up goals and how to deliver on those goals. And in the last 33 years, this is why I believe we've been able to help thousands of savers worry less about money. Now, how do we do this? I set up a process. It's a process that we follow both when I'm talking to people, all of my staff has to follow it, and what happens, this 5-step process I've trademarked called the WorryFree Retirement, allows my clients to have confidence that we're all on the same page. You may have felt like that before with your finances. It's like every time I go in to see my advisor, I come out more confused than when I went in there. That's because you have no game plan. So let me make an offer to you. There's no cost or obligation to see the WorryFree Retirement Game Plan in action. It's all confidential. You would meet with me in person. So if you're retired, thinking about retiring soon, maybe you have a 401k, you have money in the bank, you've been to one of these dinner seminars that's kind of prompted your attention to get a second opinion, log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button. Let's make it a New Year's resolution to get your house in order. I can help. I'm very good at this stuff, and I look forward to meeting you soon. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's program, and until next week, let me ask a favor of you. If all else fails between now and then, would you promise to be worry-free? And I'll do the same. You make it a good day.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.